Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Gay Men Going Deeper. This is a podcast where we talk about personal development, mental health, and sexuality. Today, I'm your host. My name is Michael DiIorio, and I am very excited to invite Justin Oberste on the podcast to talk about mirroring identity and sense of self. Hi, Justin.
Hi,
Did I say your last name right? I forgot to ask you.
you did.
Okay,
Oberste, you
Oberste.
nailed it.
Perfect. Okay. So, guys, Justin and I decided to do this episode today because we both know how important our environment is in developing our own sense of self and our own identity. And when I say environment, what we're talking about is things like the people we spend the most amount of time with, where we get our news from, the social media accounts that we follow, anything that influences our identity in the world around us. And so when we can be very conscious and very deliberate about these influences, it has a profound positive impact on both our individual sense of self and even the community at large. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. Specifically, we've got a couple questions that we want to cover. That is, what is mirroring? For those of you who might not understand that concept fully, like me, we're going to talk about how this can strengthen your sense of self, how it can impact your relationships, and finally, how we could use mirroring to elevate the gay community as a whole. So first, I want to let Justin introduce himself. This is actually Justin's second time on this podcast, so I'm really excited to welcome him back. So Justin, go ahead and tell the audience a little bit about you.
Yes, it's so good to be back. My name again is Justin Oberste. I am a psychotherapist in Los Angeles, and I specialize in sex therapy, emotion focused therapy, attachment science. I work a lot with couples and specialize a lot in like dating and app culture. And I'm an artist and I love my dog. There's so many things, but that's the sum of it. But it's really good to be back. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, based on what you guys have heard of Justin, you can see why we'd have him back because it's very, very much aligned with what we talk about here on the Gay Men Going Deeper podcast. So let's start off and let's jump in with the first question. For anyone out there who might be a little bit unsure about what we're talking about when we say mirroring, Justin, I'm going to actually throw it off to you first. What can you describe what this means just in plain English for us?
Yes, mirroring is a type of reflection, reflecting back an experience, reflecting back someone's subjectivity, which subjectivity can be thoughts, ideas, your individual reality, our inner being, our body, our interests, things we enjoy. So it encompasses a lot. And it's a term I first heard in grad school when I was studying affirmative therapy. They use this word a lot with reflecting back to our LGBTQ plus clients, their lived experiences.
Yeah, perfect. Great summary. As I was looking it up myself, how I summarize it is basically the effect, the influence of our environment on us and vice versa, right? The influence of us on the environment and us on us. So it's that relationship between us as an individual and our environment around us at a very basic, vague level. Is that about right?
Yes, because I would say it's almost like two mirrors. We have what I
Yeah.
would call an inner mirror, and then we have one where we need it from outside of us.
Okay, good. Cool. Thank you. So
Yeah.
what we want to talk about first is how this mirroring actually strengthens our sense of self and how it impacts our sense of self in maybe a positive light. So I can start off by sharing, a very, very common complaint I hear from people in the Gay Men's Brotherhood, from my own clients, even myself. This is very common where people say that they don't fit in. They have a hard time
Right.
fitting in. They don't feel part of the gay community, because that's a very vague term, but basically the environment of the gay world around us. And this is regardless of age, where my clients live, race, even. Like I hear this all across the board, which I think is very interesting. Either way, we all feel like we don't fit in. No one has ever said to me, "Oh my God, I fit in perfectly." So when we dig deeper in this, and I can say that I've felt this way as well, and I still do it sometimes, feel like this community is not for me, like I have nothing aligned here at times. But when we dig into it with clients and I have that space to dig further into it, what I like to do is look at their inputs. We do what I call an environmental scan. We kind of scan their environment around them, people, social media, everything that we kind of talked about at the beginning, their beliefs, even potentially from their family or culture about homosexuality or sexuality in general. And then what we find, of course, is that they're not aligned to these things. So a lot of the things that I hear are, there's so much focus on youth. And if you're someone who's an older gentleman, that's going to make you feel like you don't belong. Like, oh, all these people are young and I'm not.
Right.
Another one is that hypersexual focus. So there's so much focus on sex and hooking up and hookup culture and all this stuff. And if that's not your jam, if that's not something that you're into, you're going to absolutely feel left out. So when we dig in, that is often the kinds of inputs that they have is things like Grindr, right? So like if you're only looking at Grindr as your kind of subset of what gay culture is, you're going to have a miserable understanding of gay culture.
Yeah.
So I think,
or even using Grindr or Scruff or something as a mirror, like we're talking about. Oh shit, we're doomed.
Yeah, and of course people are going to feel left out, right? Like, I don't fit in. They look around, they see, oh, these are the people that are on Grindr, or these are the people that are, at this party. If you don't align with that, of course you're going to feel left out. So I think it's very easy, and I don't blame anyone for feeling left out. However, I will say this: it is incumbent on us, on you, to, if you're not aligned with that, then there are other options for you. And I know that those other options aren't always visible. We don't do a great job in the community of uplifting them, but trust me, they are there. So I think it's really important to realize that you have to take a little bit of ownership there, right? You have to realize, okay, if this isn't for me, surely there is something that is out there for me. So taking that responsibility to not change your environment, but look for other environments that may be more aligned to you.
Yes, and yes. Like, I mean, you're nailing it. It's okay. So I have a lot to say. So I'll just first say, I'll probably say some things that will probably trigger some people or offend them, but it's okay. Like, just just sit with it, process it, everyone that's listening. But to kind of start with where you're focusing is for all of its undeniable benefits. Gay pride is now, I would say, preventing us to knowing ourselves. So let me go into that a little bit more, where you're mentioning fitting in. So somewhere in our history, the gay culture started forming. And we started doing things. And understandably, as a marginalized, exploited group, there were certain areas where we had to hide to even like meet each other or date secretly. And there were a lot of phrases and, hidden bars. I mean, there's a lot of history of that, even older history. So we kind of couldn't help but create what we have. And I'm kind of touching a little bit into identity politics, which I hate. But what I'm trying to say is we have our pride in America. Same-sex people can get married, which is great on the political front. But no one will fucking ask us. I'm using the F-bomb again. Here we go. No one will fucking ask us actually how we feel about things. So I'm going to bring in the subjectivity part. In this heterocentric world, they're not ready. It's uncomfortable. So I've even, encountered in my personal life with certain friends and even some family members that I haven't seen in a while or I'm around. And this, I'm explaining my subjectivity, where I will hear so much about their life and what's going on for them. And I'll ask questions, but no one will really ever ask about mine, or who I'm dating, or who I'm engaged to, or what's my line of work, or what I'm really doing. So from an individual level, I see it all the time. And even I would say out there in media and even social media, there's some people who will share some things, but you don't really get to see gay people, because that's really the primary audience here, what we actually think and feel and want to explore. There's not a lot of space for it. So my first encounter with, I would say, being reflected back or an experience was in my 30s when I came to LA, got into grad school. First day, my first professor, doctor, he was an openly gay Jewish man. And he was teaching one of my 101 classes in psychotherapy. And I remember just being so profoundly impacted by that, because I'd never had anything like that in my life. To see someone that I want to kind of become, or in the line of work I'm really intrigued and feel called to do, in that place, teaching me, who is also openly gay. I grew up in the rural South. I never had that reflecting, that mirroring. And I remember it just so profoundly impacted me in my line of work, and still to this day. I mean, it's called me to it. So there's that aspect, but then there's also within gay culture and all the various body sizes and people of color. There's not a lot of spaces yet, and I think it's been hindered by us creating kind of this weird gay culture where everyone's got the six-pack abs. They're all white, and they are all at the pool parties. They're all getting the pictures in their Speedos, and they're drinking, and there's a lot of drug culture associated with that. And it is really, I think, hurting us and killing us.
Yeah. Justin, it's great that you mentioned that, because I am living that right now. I'm currently in Puerto Vallarta, which, for those of you who don't know, is a very big gay hotspot. Lots of parties, lots of fun. So what you just said is so true. And I've been here for a couple of weeks now, and as we've been chatting, as Justin and I've been chatting about making this podcast, it was very interesting how clear to me it was that there is this almost like an echo chamber of gays who spend time only with each other, only doing those things, which is not necessarily a bad thing. But I think Justin has a very good point here. Like, I don't want to condemn that, but I'm saying if that is your only experience of a culture, you're going to have a very skewed concept of what that means.
Yes. And to kind of back up into that is a way to kind of lean more into there being something different is to understand how, extraordinary we are as gay people. I think we're incredible. I think we hold the world together, but we also have created a very dualistic culture that keeps us divided. And you're, like you said, in or out. And I think it's because there's not enough knowledge and there's not enough healing to really kind of come in and forgive ourselves. Forgive ourselves for being different, forgive ourselves for actually being gay. And that goes deep.
Yeah.
And I think it's created this prototype.
So for this question being about your strengthening your sense of self, if the listener out there right now is listening to us and saying, yes, that's me, I don't feel like I fit in, that's not my crowd, that's not what I want, how can they use mirroring and reflecting back to strengthen their sense of self?
Gosh, yes. Well, sadly, you have to work hard for it.
Yeah.
So you have to try to find it. And like, for example, I work with couples, and I have this gay couple that I'm working with now, and one of them is larger bodied. And he's not very accepted in a lot of gay communities. He doesn't necessarily feel welcome to those Speedo pool parties. He feels shamed. And when he was on dating apps years prior, he was always judged for it. So he's got a lot of insecurities, understandably. So in my line of work, I'm like, okay, this is really bothering you. This is really on your mind a lot. Let's evaluate who and what you follow on social media. What are you looking at? Are you following the Instagram guys that are influencing the gym body people, the fitness apps? What's in your life? And it was all consuming, and you can't really follow a lot of, I would say, maybe gay male celebrities without them taking pictures in a gym or with their shirt off. And I get it. It can be appealing. It brings people in, but it's so isolating, and it's very insulating. I know that sounds contradictory, but it really is both. And if anything, it's just pushing us further apart.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And it does sound contradictory. I realize that I'm going to sound very contradictory, because part of it is finding people who align with your values on the one hand. And the other side of it is you want to also not do that and not end up in this echo chamber, like we talked about, where you're only seeing and hearing the exact same things, exact same body types, exact same age, and race and all that, values even. It really is a balance of both. So I know for the listener there, you could be like, well, these guys are contradicting themselves, but how do you just kind of find that balance between both?
Yeah, gosh, I could take this so many places, but I would say it's really going to be focusing on your inner journey. and creating more awareness about yourself. Now, awareness is kind of like that is a difficult world in this world. It's a difficult world, but in a difficult word in this community. I find, and a lot of my colleagues and people I work with find that awareness is a scary term for gay people. They don't want to necessarily look inside. They don't really know who they are. There's a lot of unforgiveness within our circles, and I think that creates this lack of ability of actually seeing who we are. And we have a very closed heart in a lot of ways. So what I'm trying to do, even with this podcast, is trying to open you up just a little bit. Let's look inside. That's really scary. That inner experience is scary, and it's unfamiliar because, again, we've created this culture that doesn't really go there. It's really party, outside, everything outside of us centered. It's not really looking at our subjective journey. So awareness is a big key.
Yeah.
Just getting aware of your body, being in your body, and looking for what I would call that little inner mirror, which we can get to in a second.
And I would say what you value, what your actual core values are, not what you think you need to value or what you think you need to aspire to, but really what you truly desire and truly want. I think,
Yes.
Speaking for myself purely is I came out of the closet and I'm like, okay, cool. There's this big, luckily I was in Toronto, which is a big gay metropolis. And I was like, oh my gosh, yay. I finally found my people, my tribe. Yay. There's all these people dancing at a gay bar. I felt so happy to have found that, only to realize not too shortly thereafter that I still feel like I don't belong in a lot of levels. Right. So I thought, okay, well, now that I'm gay, I have to do these things. I have to go to the gym. I have to do this. I have to like this music, blah, 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 blah. Half of those things, let's say, were fine. And I was very happy to do that. Like I did like that music and I did like that kind of culture, but some of those things I didn't. And I felt I had to in order to fit in. I think that's the difference between fitting in and belonging. I was trying to fit in and really what I wanted was belonging.
Belonging. Gosh, that's a really good point. I had a similar journey with you where I did like some of those things when I first came out and like those musicians and was interested in the gay bar scene and stuff. And I tried all of that. But at the same time, I felt so alone. And at the same time, it seemed to really lack a lot of depth. And I've always been very attracted to kind of the deeper meanings of things just since I was young. I've always been very curious about that. So I couldn't find it there. So then I thought something was actually really wrong with me because I didn't really have a tribe or people to really talk to about this. So it took me years to kind of find out that that's not necessarily for me. I like some other things and actually be okay with that without also bullying the other side. No, go do your thing. It's just not me. So I'm going to go over here and do this. But in order to feel confident over here and to know my worth, I had to find actually some people that were similar. I had to find specific influences in my life that helped me along that journey to be confident in that. And that's what's so hard to find.
Yeah.
And you mentioned values too, which I think is a really good point, because if someone were to listen to podcasts and we'd be like, hey, write out your values. Tell me what your values are. What we might see, and I work with a lot of young 20-year-old gays, they might put, my value is to work really hard to have a nice house and a nice car. Great. That's fine. And then the next one would probably be to have a hot body, to have a beautiful man, and that's not really values. I can see why that's appealing, but how about being like a really loving partner?
Yeah.
How about really helping other marginalized and exploited groups? And whenever I try to kind of incorporate that into sessions with younger gay men, it's just like mind blowing for them, because I think they're just in a different place in life. But even some of the older gay men are still there, and it's still hard for them to grasp. So got to really go deep and go inward to really know what our values are. We still tend to take it surface.
Yeah, I did. Where were you in my 20s, Justin? You pretty much you described me about 10 years ago or so.
Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah, what I learned is I achieved all those things. I did all that stuff. I got the body, got the boyfriend, got the job, got the house, blah 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 blah. Guess what? Not happy, not fulfilled. Wasn't there. What I was looking for wasn't there. And so that's what kind of started me on my own spiritual journey, the journey inward instead of outward. And sorry, in fact, that is where my company came from, Willismo. it is a culmination of, I did a journey on my own, kind of looking inward, and I learned so much about myself. That's when I actually started to enjoy life satisfaction, fulfillment. Not that I gave up all those things, by the way, I didn't, but I just changed my interaction and relationship with them. And Willismo was born. It was first a blog. It was born out of this. I looked around at the community and thought, wait a minute, no one's talking about this, at least not in my circles. So I decided to step up and be that. It was a blog at first, and I shared my personal development experiences on the blog. And here I am, 3 years later, and I have my own coaching practice based on that.
It's awesome. Now, was it scary to kind of go inward? And
yeah, I thought that I would lose, and I did. Some of the people, friends, I'll say that. I thought they were my friends, but I've come to realize that anyone who was only wanted to be around me because of something externally was not actually my friend. But yes, it was scary because I felt very alone. And this actually is a great segue for our next question. I felt so alone because no other game man that I knew was doing the spiritual seeking, reading the kind of books I was reading. I felt like I was back in the closet in a way, like I'm exploring this thing, spirituality, and I'm not religious by any means, but I was really seeking for something inward, and I was getting that, but I feel like I couldn't talk about it at like the club. So that's where this came from.
Yeah, gosh, see, you're touching on a lot of great stuff. So I think it's scary. You're going to lose friends. And there's always that question, like, write down the 5 people you hang around the most.
Yeah.
Those are the things that are going to influence you. And it would go with social media and what you watch on television. And so where I want to come in to some of these younger gays and those who are listening, older, younger, wherever you are in life, is to kind of, let's liberate the heart first. Let's go in there and actually see what's there. And yeah, it's probably going to be dark a little bit. And it might cause some anxiety. It's going to be uncomfortable, but we got to go there if we're going to see any kind of changes that's really going to benefit our community, but also really to save this planet.
Yeah.
And the only way to really save this planet is really going to the heart. We can see that now with the conflict in Ukraine. I mean, it's on a human level, we've got to reevaluate and go to the human heart.
Yeah. And things in the darkness, they have more power, I would say, in the darkness than they do once you bring them to the light. Because once you bring them to the light, you can work on them, right? And as a psychotherapist, this is very much part of what you do, right?
Mm-hmm. And the closer you get to the light, the more darkness there is, the bigger shadow. So it's good to have a balance with it, to accept both. And that's the big difference within Christianity is, the darkness would probably be considered sin. So what they miss out on, which I find with Hindu and Buddhist teachings, where you can incorporate it in Christianity, it can just be amazing, is to actually explore the darker side of you. Because once you do that, you feel more whole. You're more familiar with yourself and how you operate in the world. And if anything, it creates more empathy. It helps you it helps you get more in charge of your life. You're more authentic. You know who you are, all sides of you.
And that feels so good. And it changes the way you show up. It changes the way you show up.
You actually show up.
Yeah.
You're not hiding, you're not numbing, you're not running away. And that's something I tend to think when I see a lot of gay men at the clubs drinking. Again, it's fine if that's what you want to do. But if it's every weekend and even during the weeknights, and I have friends that do that, I'm always just like, what are you doing? Well, I'm just like, what are you running from?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I have a couple friends who are newly single, and they live in the Los Angeles area. So they're back on the dating apps, Tinder, Hinge, all that. And I'm hearing their experience, and they're like, I'm meeting guys who are beautiful. They've got rocking bodies, and they have beautiful friends that look just like them. And I'll ask them what they're doing on weekends. And they're like, oh, I went to this pool party, or went to the beach with my friends. I binge watched the show on Netflix. Went to watched this drag show the other night, which is all fun and great. But what they're seeing is within the dating circles is there's no time to, like, these guys aren't spending time with themselves to reflect. They're not reading a book. They're not going out in nature in the sense of like to be reflected back in nature, to take in that experience. Why am I here on this earth? How can I love people more? Some of those really core human being questions, it's being avoided. That time is being avoided. So even seeing that mirrored from my friends, their experiences, I'm like, oh man, we got to say something. This is a problem. And it's, I think it's going to hurt us. It has kind of hurt us.
It has. And I think that's why, podcasts like this are important. The work you do is important. The work we do in the Gay Men's Brotherhood is important. I would say, I don't know, maybe this is biased, but I think we're taking the right steps. I would say that's my perspective of it. Yeah.
Yes. I think we're moving through a little bit more aware.
Yeah. An awakening of sorts.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Justin, let's shift focus a little bit into relationships now. So, how does this concept of mirroring impact our relationships?
Yeah, well, we have to really kind of know ourselves first in order to know what we even want and want to date. That's why there's so many issues in the dating world and ghosting, and we've got these crazy different attachment styles going on. So again, what influences you? What are you seeing on social media? Who are your friends? Who are you spending the most time with? And taking the time to really decide what you want to influence you, and not getting stuck in this feedback loop of the same people, the same things, the same atmospheres. Like you don't evolve that way.
Right.
And yeah, back to that, like five people that influence you. I think it's a good way to kind of step back and evaluate. And I would say too, because I tend to be more of a spiritual person, kind of like you too, Michael, where I think we need to elevate our consciousness. And that's just going to be by elevating our spiritual and emotional growth. And that's going to be probably very different friends than what the typical person might have that's listening to this.
Yeah.
And I think that in order to find that, we do live in a very socially connected world. We can look at hashtags on Instagram. We can find accounts and follow them. And even with my larger body clients, like I mentioned earlier, when I ask what they're following, I always tell them, find people that look like you, follow them. There's some great body positive people out there, and therapists and leaders and influencers that look like them. Follow that, get that beauty reflected back to remind you of, I can be who I fucking want to be. And I look good and I want to feel good in the body I have now.
Yeah.
And that's hard for people to feel good about themselves right now.
And oftentimes you need that role model, right? You need to have someone who maybe is a couple steps ahead of you, even. Just like, oh, wow, look at them doing it. Look at them rocking, whatever it is they're doing. I always advocate with my clients two things in particular on this with respect to relationships. One is on dating apps. I'll say, change your filters, whatever your filters are, between age 20 and 30, this height, this weight, this body type, throw them away. And just connect with people, not with the expectation or purpose of either, having sex with them or dating them. Just connect with them as humans. Learn the skill of connection without any expectation, but high degree of intention. So if someone, if it's something like Grindr where someone messages you and you're like, oh, okay, I'm not really interested in this. If they had the balls, for lack of a better word, to message you, they're interested, why not say hi? Let's see where the conversation goes. If it's something like Hinge, and you kind of think their profile says some things that are interesting, but their pictures aren't quite exactly what you would normally like, say, like, swipe yes anyway and see where that connection goes. I think there's so much to learn from each other that we think, okay, what I want is in this little box, but in fact, how could you possibly tell from a dating profile app? Like, this person could be kind, generous, sweet, all the things that you want. They could have the same values as you, and you would never know, only because perhaps they're maybe not the exact physical replica of what you want, right?
Yeah. That's so many good things with that. I sometimes have to watch dating shows because I work within relationships and with couples, and most of them are trash.
Yeah.
And there's one in particular, it was a British one. I forgot the name of it, but they sat down with this one female, and they asked her, what are your what are you looking for in a partner? And she was heterosexual and a male partner, and she gave probably 25 to 50 things about what she's looking for, what she wants, and it was all on appearance. Not once about, I need him to be kind.
Yeah.
I need him to respect me. I need him to be committed. I need him to be reliable. Nope, he needs to have veneers. He needs to have these color eyes, these kind of pecs. And I was just like, wow, that's what dating apps really are. And I have so many clients that come to me that are sick and tired of getting their first question being top or bottom.
Yeah.
And I tell my clients, like, that tells me that, well, it's sad, but also they're probably, if they're just one of the specific things, they're probably sexually boring. Let's be a little bit more fluid. Let's explore. Don't commit to coming over and doing something to someone when the vibe or energy may not be there. So kind of avoiding that language. But also, when you meet people on dating apps, try to meet them, get face to face soon, like FaceTime.
Yes.
Go on a
absolutely.
date. Like, yes. So there's so much to that. But again, you got to kind of know yourself. You got to be able to sit with yourself and know what you want and what you're looking for.
It seems like we both work with clients who are looking for relationships. And I know it's very frustrating to be a gay single man in this culture where, all you see is not you, and thinking, how can I ever find somebody when I'm so far away from this kind of ideal, right? Which is why I think it's important that we all do this. I would love to create a movement around, don't look at people, and I know on dating apps it's hard, even at a bar, obviously the first thing you're going to see is what somebody looks like. It's the same thing, but take the time at least to open the door and get to know them. And then if they're not for you, then they're not for you, and that's fine. At least you could rest assured. But for sure there are amazing guys out there who have everything that someone could possibly want, but they are maybe just shy or slightly socially awkward only because they feel like they don't belong, by no fault of their own.
Yeah, totally. And something too, I think it's important to say to people on these apps and dating is, you just remember it's a human being on the other side of that.
Yeah.
So when it comes to ghosting and stuff, it's really hurtful for people and it makes them feel even more rejected. So I want us as a community just to remember, we're talking to other people who have experiences and feelings, and let's quit being so avoidant. And actually, if you're not interested in someone or it's not working out, come up with an exit strategy where you actually tell them this isn't working, or we may not be a good fit. Like, they're in your care. These people are in our care. Let's be gentle and kind to one another. I wanted to add that in there too, because it's really harsh.
Absolutely, because people just will often ghost because it's easier. And yet that's so cruel, especially after you've developed a connection with somebody.
Yes.
Especially then, like if you've already gone on dates, you've already established a connection, then to just cut that and sever that, it's terrible.
Yeah. It hurts, and it leaves people jaded, and it hurts their mental health.
Yeah.
We're hurting each other. So let's be a little bit more kind and caring.
I want to take a little time also to talk about romantic relationships or even friendships, the benefit of having people in your circle who are different from you. I think that has helped me a lot because we grow from the contrast. So again, this is where I'm going to sound contradictory. We grow from the contrast of having people who, yes, who don't look like us, absolutely, but also who have different, maybe not values, but different opinions for sure. Even with my own partner now, I typically went for, he makes fun of me because I had a mold. He called it a mold of the same kind of guy who was always who would I always go for. And then here he is, not fitting into the mold at all. But that was very much, I wouldn't say a deliberate choice on my part, but it speaks to how I changed. The fact that all of a sudden I wasn't going for that mold anymore, or it just wasn't the only thing I was looking at. And so I think there's a lot to be said for growth, individual growth through relationships. Can you talk a bit about that?
Yes. We're going to evolve as a human species, but especially as a gay community, the more we can include various intersections, various people from different backgrounds, race, sexualities, and quit being so cliquish in a sense. I understand we need certain representation, and we might find that at a gay bar where it's everyone that's just like us. I understand that aspect too, but can we please put ourselves out into the trans communities, especially right now. And there is this little conflict, I feel, within the LGBTQ community, especially with gay and lesbian people with trans. There's a disconnect, and I'm not sure why it's there, but it is. And I think we really need to go to our hearts and really try to find better and more creative ways to help that community, because they are even more marginalized and exploited. And as we know, within the American politics scene, there are so many bills against the trans community, especially the youth. There's one bill towards, gay, well, everyone LGBTQ within Florida. That's a big deal right now. So we got to pay attention to that too. But trans people are really, they're getting attacked.
Yeah, we actually had one of our Gay Men's Brotherhood ads was attacked by an anti-trans group. I don't even know the name of it. I wouldn't even give them the time of day on here, but they were basically upset that we, as the Gay Men's Brotherhood, accepted and invited the trans community into our space, even though it's called Gay Men's Brotherhood. We've made a very deliberate decision as a team to say, yes, we invite trans people. So beautiful. Yeah, they have been at us, and they're trying to get all our ads removed and revoked from Facebook. So yeah, you're right. People will stop. People's hatred, it really knows no bounds. Yeah. And we have to counter that with love. I think we have to counter that with the opposite of love.
Yes, and care and just gosh, I have so much to say about this, but just love. That's the best word. Love and care, and if you don't understand, do some research. Try to find someone that can help educate you more. There are so many resources you can go and find and read books. I'm fortunate enough to have trans people in my life that have really just taken me under their wing, and it's been wonderful. Now, someone I can shout out, Alok. Are you familiar with Alok?
No.
Non-binary, beautiful human being. They're on Instagram, Alok. Okay. They're speaking out a lot, and they were just on Glennon Doyle's podcast. And so nice. Just a beautiful story and just brilliant. So you can find things. There's things out there now to really help make us more empathetic. We need it.
Yeah, I agree. Couldn't agree more. On the topic of community relationships and other ways that this, looking at or looking for rather other things, other people, other images, other experiences that could kind of up level, evolve our own relationships. I think another piece of that is even looking at our sex life and using porn as a way to normalize body types that you wouldn't normally see in a traditional porn. I think that is another huge one. If you're a gay man or anyone who watches porn, that's fine, that's great. But notice if all of your porn looks the same and has the same kind of bodies, the same kind of age type.
Yes.
That's a huge piece too, because that can totally affect your body image. It will totally affect your body image.
Totally. And people, sadly, we have had to get our sex education from porn.
Yeah.
Because we didn't get it in our schools. We still really don't have it. So a lot of people look to that. And so if they don't have like a 10-inch dick, I hope I can talk about this on here.
Yeah,
they don't have a 10-inch dick and can go rail someone for 2 hours, something's wrong with them. And they come to people like me and they're just like, I can't keep it up. Or there's so many things about erectile dysfunction, which I reframe that and say erectile disappointment, because a lot of people don't have enough information on what a healthy penis is and does. You know what? Sometimes it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
And it's so complex with our nervous system. We have to feel safe in order to even get hard. People don't know that. So it's yes. Go ahead, Michael. Sorry.
It speaks to what you said at the beginning, Justin, which is, the first question I asked you is how do we do that? And you said it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of work, of course, because Instagram, whatever Pornhub, whatever you're using, is going to give you the same things over and over because that's what's popular. That's what you've liked before. So you really do have to go out of your way to say, okay, I'm actually gonna look for something a little different. I'm gonna go look up what a normal average penis looks like. Like it's not something that's going to show up on your screen automatically.
Yes. Yeah. What are the sizes of a normal average penis? Some people don't know that. You can Google that. That's easy. And sometimes they don't have sex drive. Oh, I don't know what's wrong with me. I don't feel like having sex. Well, that's actually normal. Our sex drives are constantly up and down, up and down. It could depend on work, family, the relationship. There's all these other external factors that can affect that. And that's okay. That's actually normal. But people freak out, understandably, because they don't know it's normal.
Yeah.
So so you have to kind of come in and help and educate. I really am basically a sex educator.
And that's great. I think that's what we need. And I hope people listening to this feel a little bit of relief saying, oh, okay, well, that's good, right? Like, I don't need to be.
But it's
this
hard.
kind of person.
It's hard. Yeah. They don't get it right away because we've had, if it's someone in their 40s, they've had 40 years of a very different narrative. So when I come in and I'm like, oh, this is normal, that's not an issue, try this, they're like, what? And I find myself for months, I kind of have to go back and repeat it again.
Yeah.
Because I'm their only source of a new narrative. So I have to try to repeat, be patient, give them other materials, other books that help reinforce this narrative to slowly let it integrate in. So people are probably going to hear this and be like, what? I didn't know this. Well, listen to the podcast again.
Yeah.
Like, you got to let it integrate in. It takes time.
Especially if you've had these narratives built in, they're like basically like entrenched in your belief system. It's not going to just take one listen or one thing. You really do have to make a commitment to wanting to learn a different way.
Yeah. And research the professionals in those arenas.
Yeah. Well, we'll
find those who have done the work.
We're going to put Justin's notes in the bottom here. So if you are interested in connecting with Justin, he'll give you his contact info after the end here.
Yes.
Okay. I think I also wanted to talk about the greater community. I think there's a lot to be said about the marginalized people. We talked about that a lot. Yeah. Mirroring, as we've seen already, can affect you can use this in so many different ways: body image, sex life, relationships, your own sense of self and identity. Let's talk about how we can use this to elevate our entire community. We've talked about how there is a lot of work to be done. We do have a lot of work to do. How can we use this to elevate the community?
Yeah. First, we need to find mirrors, which we've kind of talked about a little bit, but it's basically, to kind of sum it up, you have to look for it. Look at Instagram, look at Facebook, find groups of things that you might find interesting. For myself, I didn't really have mirrors. A mirror for me for a while was nature. I found it in the mountains and with waterfalls. And people might be like, what does that mean? No, I actually found a part of me reflected back in nature that helped me quiet down and go inward more. So it can be so many things. So look for it, be aware of it. Gosh, you know what? I just lost focus. What did you ask?
How we could use this mirroring to help elevate the community as a whole.
There we go.
Yeah.
Thank you. And so sorry. Okay. So find the mirroring, and then also come to the realization of, as a culture, again, spiritual person, we've replaced God or the divine with having a hot body, having material wealth or things. So having an awareness of what the influences are outside of us. So knowing what it is, and then finding ways to get what you want and need that can help deepen your sense of self. And then that just naturally will trickle out into who you surround yourself with, what you want to get involved in, and you'll have something to offer. Like, I don't think you can do anything meaningful in this world until you take this inner journey, because you don't even know yourself. Once you know yourself and do the hard work, feel the feelings, feel the pain, forgive yourself for things, then you can actually expand and make an impact in this world. So it's going to naturally come forth. It's going to naturally come into the community, and you're going to be a different person, and people are going to listen.
I think one of those things that would happen as a natural byproduct would be looking around doing that inventory we talked about, looking around at the people who are closest to you, or where you're getting your beliefs about gay culture, whatever that might be, and then asking yourself, is my friend group diverse enough? Am I getting the real personal life experiences of people who don't look like me, who are not my age, who don't have the same body as me, and really understanding who they are and what their challenges are, I think two things are going to happen. One, you're going to be blown away by the fact that some people have challenges that you haven't even considered exist.
Exactly.
And the second thing is it'll be amazing how, in fact, similar you are on some levels.
Yeah, which again is going to take you inward. It's going to make you think, and you're going to process, and it can change you if you allow it to. It's kind of leaning into those uncomfortable spaces. And people think when they're uncomfortable, that something's wrong. Like we talk about it in therapy, psychoanalytic stuff, like the window of tolerance. When you're up against the edge, you're going to feel anxious, you're going to feel uncomfortable. If anything, that's actually a good sign.
Yeah.
So reach out to people that are unfamiliar, that are different from you looks wise, because you might actually find they're very similar to you in your experience. That's kind of the beauty, but it's also going to expand you as a person. In order for us to expand as human beings, we have to do things that make us anxious and nervous and are uncomfortable. It's the only way to get out of this loop.
Yeah, growth happens outside of the comfort zone.
Yeah. Lean into it. I even offer that to clients within their sexual experiences. Like, find people online, if you're in chat rooms and stuff, that look different than you.
Yeah.
Masturbate with people online that look different than you and have a different body than you. Like, it can be so sexually liberating.
And I love that.
Try it. Yeah, try it.
Yeah.
You'll be amazed at how it can expand you.
And it also, if you're someone out there who's looking for love or anything, even just looking for sex, it completely opens the door to so much more fun. Like it's actually fun. Like you'll enjoy experiences you never even knew existed before with people that you would have never even given the time of day to, but it just makes it so much more fun and so much more open. Whatever it is you're looking for, either way.
Yeah, totally. It can really benefit you in ways you don't even know yet.
Another thing that I would say to someone out there who maybe, has the means to do so or has the, desire to do so is what I had talked about with my blog, which was, I was on this journey myself. I had learned so much about me and I had developed so much more confidence and sense of self-worth through my own reading of books and watching YouTube videos and all my spiritual teachers and all these things. But I kept it all to myself. And then eventually I was like, no, I can't do this anymore. I need to share this. I need to tell the world there's another way. And so I started my blog, as this, and I called it Willismo, the other side of gay culture. And, that represents things like inner strength, connection, authenticity, courage, all these things, because we think gay culture is, superficiality, sex, blah, 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 blah. But I think I'm not that special. Anyone out there, any listener out there could do the same thing. Take something that, you think could help the community, be that space. In my case, I saw, at least in my world, there was no one out there who was talking about this, who was gay, who was looking at it from a very unapologetically gay lens. It was a lot of women and a lot of, older people, not gay at all. So I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to apply these concepts to the gay people out there. And, I created the space. But anyone else out there can do that if they feel so called to do that. And I think it's important that we do that. It's important that we stop hiding and we say, hey, listen, everyone, there's another way. Either you're into it or not, but hey, there is another way here.
Yeah, I mean, you are a beautiful example of what we're talking about. You took the time to look at your inner mirror, go deeper, and it forced its way out. I've got to do something. I've got to change something. I've got to have a voice in this because I can't find it anywhere else. And then other people are drawn to you. I mean, you're their coach. So other people are seeing it within themselves. Like, wait, there is something here. I actually feel seen now. I can actually come out of the closet, or I can come out of the shadow and say something. And the more we can do this as human beings, as a human race, but especially the gay community, the better. That's when the healing can really begin.
Yeah. And I think it's important that to your point earlier, that trans folks and people of color, right, are also step up and make that place. Yeah, I have a friend of mine, he's probably listening right now. He's always says, I'm so tired of hearing these gay movies and stories and narratives about the white guy. Like there's no like Asian lead. And I was like,
No.
honey, create it. Like, yes, you're right. Like there does need to be that story. That story needs to be told. People need to hear that story. It's a valid story. But if it's not being done, we have to make space for it, but also someone needs to step up and do it as well.
Yeah, the representation really does matter. And I even have some straight heterosexual female friends who are just now seeing other female leads in movies, like even in Black Widow is a recent Marvel movie,
Yeah.
where they're seeing their body type reflected on the big screen has been instrumental in their growth.
Yeah.
So imagine what that would be doing for people of color. And it's not really happening yet. I get a little sick of seeing the typical cisgender, white gay male movies or Netflix shows where they're coming out is difficult and grueling. I get it, but we need other things reflected back to us. What if that could have been a person of color that was larger bodied?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, what that would have done. Or even let's do one about someone who is trans.
Yeah. Or even older. The emphasis on youth is
so much ageism. Yeah.
Ageism. Yeah.
We need it. We need more of it. I think there will be a time where we can get it. But again, we have to really, I'm going to keep pointing to my chest. We got to go inward.
Yeah.
There's
definitely, I know that there's a person, probably many people listening to this right now who are thinking, yes, someone out there needs to do that. All I want to say is that person is you.
Do it.
Like there's nothing stopping you from doing that. If that's something,
get uncomfortable, get your hands dirty.
100%. And that's also what we did with the Gay Men's Brotherhood. Like we wanted a community where we could talk, we could connect with other gay men, where it was not only about, what are you into, how big is your dick, and can I see some photos of you? It's more about what are the challenges you've experienced, how do you experience shame, what has your personal development journey been like, spirituality, all of these things that this entire podcast is about. And we wanted to create a community where people can connect on that level as well, because it's so sex focused, I think, in the mainstream media. And there's so much more to us than that. We deserve so much more than just
that's somehow wrapped into just our little, again, identity politics. And there's so much more to us. That's where our subjectivity comes in, and it matters, and it's not really heard. So to keep leaning into that, and again, to your point about actually going out there and doing it, like if you want others to be more loving, choose to love first.
Yeah.
If you want to reconcile, if you need the outer world reconciled, reconcile your own inner world. If you notice people's irritability, let go of your own. If you wish to find some other stillness, find it within yourself. So we got to start here. We got to start in that inner world first.
That's the reflection of inner without it, right?
Exactly.
All right, Justin, do you have any last words on this before we wrap up today's episode?
Gosh, I hope listeners will go back and listen to this again.
Yeah.
And really have it reflect back over and over to really let some of these things sink in. If you are listening to this and something made you uncomfortable or anxious, pay attention to it. It's okay. Soften into it. See what your heart, the divine, if you're spiritual, what it might be trying to tell you. Take your time with this. If you need help, call Michael. If you need a therapist, find me. I have a website now. It's justinoberste.com. You can reach out to me there. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all that stuff. We are out there. We are reachable. We are accessible. Let us all learn and grow together and help change the world.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you. And yes, everyone, I will be putting Justin's information in the show notes on the podcast episode, on YouTube, wherever you're watching or listening to us, it'll all be there. So please do reach out to Justin, reach out to me. I'll put mine in there as well. Justin said it so well. We are out there and we want to make a difference, and we're here. Okay, guys, so that's what we've got for you today on this episode about mirroring identity and personal growth. So we hope we've inspired you today. If you have any questions, please contact us. Like I said, I'll put our info in the show notes. If you're watching us on YouTube, please go ahead and leave us a comment there. We will be looking at the comments. We will be replying to the comments. We also read out feedback at the beginning of our episodes. So if you want to say something lovely, we'll share that with you guys on the next episode. If you are listening to us on a podcast, we would deeply appreciate a 5-star rating and a wonderful review as well. Every little review and rating helps us get our message out there. Finally, if you guys are not already in the Gay Men's Brotherhood Facebook group, please join us. It's completely free and it's a private group for, I think we've got over 5,000 guys in there now, where we talk about personal development, mental health, sexuality. It's a wonderful place to be if you want to create some connections in the community that are not necessarily just about sex. Finally, this podcast and YouTube channel are viewer and listener supported. So if you enjoy what we're creating here, you can support us by heading over to our Patreon page in the show notes and help us support the show. It helps us to continue making amazing content and supporting the community. And guys, one more thing, sorry, the Gay Men Going Deeper membership is open. So the Gay Men Going Deeper membership is for people who want to take their personal development to the next level. Matt, Calan, and I are creating amazing content, courses, videos for you every single month. So please join us there. The link is in the show notes. And I can't wait to see you guys. So thank you so much, Justin, for sharing your wisdom today. And thank you, listener, viewer, for joining us. Have a great day. Bye-bye.